Morning, everyone. Once again, Happy New Year to those who have joined us. Thank you so much for coming today. This is January 27th, the DDEC meeting that was called to order at 9 a.m. and we recess until 9:05, which we will now reconvene. At this time, I'll have staff, Ms. Susan, if you can call the roll, please.
Yeah, if I can, Madam Chair, just want to introduce Susan Holtzclaw. You've seen emails, because I don't think she was not here last time, because Wendy had left, so Susan is now the point person. So.
Okay. Am I on? Good morning.
Good morning. Susan, you got you. So yes, welcome, Susan.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Maria Antuna.
If I could take her place just for today.
Yes.
So for today, we have Eduardo
Groovman
in place for Maria as an alternate, a non-voting alternate, for the record.
Okay. All right. Rex Barnes. Amanda Canete.
Present.
Cassandra Corbin Thaddeus, Palm Beach Council of PTAs. Suzanne Cordero, El Sol Jupiter. Sue Davis Killian, Gold Coast Down Syndrome Organization. Carla Donaldson. Reggie Durandis, For the Children. Mary Evans, Tri-Cities. Miriam Glamad. That's a tough one for me. Marcia Guthrie, West Palm Beach, NAACP. Robin Jones, FAU.
Present.
Emmy Kenny, Palm Beach County Human Rights Council.
Present.
Myra Levy Bazemore, Coalition for Black Student Achievement.
Present.
Lindsay McElroy, Guatemalan Mayan Center. Craig McKenzie, Economic Council of Palm Beach County.
Present.
Dr. Gabriela Mendez, Hispanic Education Coalition.
Yes, hello.
Good morning.
I can't enter the meeting in my computer. I don't know, nobody's let me in.
Pardon me?
Hello?
Yes?
We can hear you.
Yes. You can hear me? Yes, but I'm using the link for the Google Meet in the computer, and it says that I'm asking to be let in, and I should join the call when someone lets me in. But nobody's letting me in. That's why I have to use the phone.
Okay,
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Right
Thank
now.
you. I'll stay here while I'm muted.
Did you create money? Because you need to go sign in. Would you leave off? I'll finish. You can go sign in. You ready?
Down to...
Before you go on, I'm the primary for ESC advisory, and my name wasn't called. Carla's my alternate. What?
They probably haven't gotten done.
We're getting to you, Kimberly.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I thought
Rachel
you went by
Mondesir.
organization.
Oh,
Juan Pagan
he used to.
is here.
No.
Presente.
Presente. Charmaine Postal, Madam Chair is here.
Present.
Terrence Reed. Eddie Rhodes.
Here.
Dr. Deborah Robinson, School District. Here. ESE Advisory, Kimberly Spiro.
Present.
Urban League of Palm Beach County, Latoya Stevenson. Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Evelyn Vargas.
She's sick.
Okay. And FAU card, Carrie Whittle.
Present.
Okay.
At this time, we do have a quorum, and if we can please, you want to do it?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. So at this moment, just before we get started, we lost a very dear friend, colleague, dedicated individual to, I know particular to this committee, but to the entire district. Dr. Joaquin Garcia passed away. I'm going to turn to Mr. Pagan, if you do not mind, to say a few words, and then perhaps we could take a moment of silence. I know he's very dedicated to this work.
That will be an honor. Thank you very much. Dr. Joaquin Garcia was a well-known contributor to the community, a individual well involved across all lines. It was on.
Just close it.
Okay. I was saying Dr. Garcia was a well-known contributor to the community, member of the community for many years, and so forth. He was a member of this committee for many years, and we had the opportunity to work together. So, remembering him, remembering his contributions to the community, I would like to say at least a minute of silence. Thank you, and God bless him.
Thank you. Dr. Joaquin would certainly be missed. At this time, we'll have the approval of November minutes. The minutes was distributed by email to each member of the DDC committee. Although we don't have a printed copy here, it was distributed in the email. So if we have reviewed.
Move to approve the necessary corrections.
Second. Are there any corrections? Minutes were approved by Mr. Eddie Rose, second by Ms. Canetti, Amanda Canetti. Thank you. Updates from the last month. We had our board. I did attend a school board meeting last month. A copy of underneath the copy of the minutes or attached to the minutes was also the board report at that last board meeting that was given. So you can certainly read that and govern yourself accordingly if you have any updates or if we have, which Mr. Oswald will update us on anything that he's had since our last meeting, and as well as a staff member who is here to talk about PBS, positive behavior support. And if there is no objections, I'm going to just change a little bit of the order of our agenda today. If you look under unfinished business, we have positive behavior support. We have the DDEC statement as well as the paper presentation. I'm going to ask that because there's a couple of conflicts in scheduling today that's out of our control, if we can be a little bit flexible, if we're okay with being a little bit flexible with the movement of the agenda for today. Are there any objections? Hearing none, positive behavior support will come right after Mr. Oswald give his Chief Equity Wellness. I ask that before we continue, please talk into the mic because our minutes, sometimes we don't capture everything in this meeting, so we do go back to the recordings to hear, and it's sometimes very difficult to hear when you're not talking into the mic, even if you think you are, and you may not think you think you're talking loud. When we go back to listen to the recording, it is not loud, and that's more so for the people that's in the room than the people on the mic, on the screen. Without further ado, Mr. Oswald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do want to acknowledge that we did have a couple people join the room. Rachel Montesir, Robin Jones, who's with paper for a presentation shortly. Robin, thank you also for being here. Gabriel Mendez, we see you at this time. And Sandra Thaddeus. Welcome as well. Glad you are all here as well.
And I'm sorry, just so we're not rude, also for those that's in, and for minutes purposes, if those who are in the room can just state their name, who have not been called or recognized, if you could state your name and who you're here representing.
Yolanda Morgan, Office of General Counsel.
Valmoria Ambrose, Positive Behavior Support.
Janina Simmons, Manager of Equity and Wellness. Access.
Pete Stewart, he, him, teaching and learning.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, and welcome. It's great to see you. Happy New Year. I know we didn't have a meeting in December. I hope everybody had a great holiday and some time to rest, because it's sure going to pan out to be a busy year with what we're seeing going on, especially in the world of education. Due to the jam-packed agenda that we do have, I do want to jump in first to one of the items around, at the request of the committee, around positive behavior support. So one of the all-stars on the team, Valmoria Ambrose, who's here today, is going to give an overview about the research, what it is, how we do it, and some of the challenges we work through and where we're kind of headed into the future with this work. So I'm going to turn it over to her and pull up her presentation, which was also emailed to you as well. So welcome. It's on the PDF one.
All right, good morning. So this is our positive behavior support that we do in the district under the Department of Safe Schools with Dr. Ruth Francis as our manager and Diane as our director. So thank you for having us. As always, we like to show why our work is important. So we are aligned with the strategic theme and plan. We fall under the strategic theme of 2, positive and supportive school climate. We ensure that all of our schools create matrices around positive school climate and ensure that the matrix is across the board, and we'll look at a matrix a little later so that you can see exactly what we speak of when we speak of that language matrix. But the matrix is there to create that positive culture for the school, starting from the front office to the custodial staff, to our children, to our teachers, and also our parents. So it encompasses all of our stakeholders in the district. What are the goals of this training and PBS as a whole? We always want to ensure that our schools understand that we operate and work off of 7 essential components. They drive PBS. They are what builds the framework of PBS, because PBS is a framework. We want to recognize the importance of cultural responsiveness, and we talk about this with our internal coaches. That is the lead person on each campus that promotes the positive behavior, and that is our direct report when we're trying to push things out in the name of PBS. So we've had a training around cultural responsiveness and what that looks like, and how equity and equitable outcomes have to be in the PBS process. We also want to make sure that they understand and are utilizing their universal guidelines. It's not just up for show, but it is something that is embedded into their culture, creating that single school culture, and it is something that is their everyday language. The students speak it, the parents speak it, the staff speaks it. And then we also always stress the importance that data accountability is so important in PBS. We don't just come to a table and say what we think is best. Everything is based off of what does the data say. Does the data say we should move this? Does the data say we need to go back and look at this? Where are our problem areas so that we can make sure that we are putting positive things in place and that we are being proactive rather than reactive? So here are our 7 essential components. And what's important to note about these is that it is not one above the other. We need each one of them in order for our work to be successful. So we start with administrative support. We all know that it starts at the head and trickles down. So admin has to be involved in this process. And sometimes that may look like the principal and assistant principal or one of the other, but we do recommend, and it is one of our essential components, that the admin support is so necessary to this process and to the framework. We want to make sure that we have a common purpose and approach to discipline. Now, PBS is not a one-size-fits-all, and this is why this component is very important. PBS will look different on every campus. The framework is the same, the essentials are the same, but again, going back to that data piece, we're looking at what students are we serving and how can we best approach them and what is our common purpose on our particular campus. So you'll never see us write scripts, you'll never see us give anything because PBS is individualized for each school campus based on the demographic or the students that they serve. We always want to make sure that we define positive expectations because we can never assume that our students or our staff know how to behave and what we are to expect. So we clearly define that and lay that out for our students and staff. On this campus, this is what respect looks like. On this campus, this is what being responsible looks like. We never leave it out there to just assume that they're going to have the same dictionary or definition that we have. We really break it down on each campus and define what that looks like and what that looks like for each area. And you'll see that again when we get to the matrix. So once we've defined that, we now take it a step further and say, okay, how are we going to teach it? It's one thing to tell a student to be respectful, but it's another to teach someone how to be respectful and show them how to be respectful. And once all of those things are in place, it's a continuum. It's not we're starting strong in August and that's what it is. It is from August all the way until May, and then we're using that summertime to clean it up, look at the data, go back, revamp, or keep it going. So as you can see, it's a continuum, and then the procedures for ongoing monitoring and evaluating. That piece is so important because you want to make sure that you're looking at that data constantly, you're monitoring it, because we all know if you put something in place and you don't continue to monitor it or don't continue to evaluate, it just sits there. So not only do we have our essential components, but we also have principles that guide our PBS. And this is something that we go through with our internal coaches, and then in turn they take it back to their schools and have this conversation. And one of the, I won't read it to you, but one of the most important things or bullets that stands out is that it's important to note that PBS is for all students, all staff, and all settings. The purpose of positive behavior support is not only to set our students up for success in school, but our matrix and our expectations are broad for a reason, because we want our students to know that this will set you up for life as well. Not only do you need to be respectful in school, but being respectful in life goes a long way as well. And then as always, we always use data to guide our decisions. Here's a little bit of research, and I've also included the link. We are in conjunction with FLPBIS through the state with the University of South Florida, and the data piece is here. This has been a research evidence-based program. So again, we're not just pulling things out of the hat. We're looking at what does the research say? What does this say? How does it benefit? And we use different surveys and tools to really gauge that and get that understanding. If you look at the circles, we always make a joke that there's no real trainings if you don't have circles and triangles. So our purpose of that is to say that we operate out of the system of data, systems, practices, outcomes. Your data is important first. You have to look at the data. What does that say? From the data, we're putting in practices. What practices will best fit our students? Again, remembering PBS is not a one-size-fits-all. So what does it say about our students and our demographic specifically on each campus? And then from putting those practices in place, if we find out they're good practices, those practices become systems, and those systems are embedded time after time to create that single school culture, thus creating those positive outcomes that we look for when we do our end of the year data. And here is our chart. PBS is for everyone. We don't leave anyone out from tier 1 to tier 2. to Tier 3, we are looking at all students, all staff, everyone is involved in this PBS process, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. And it's so important, and we're a small team, but we like to say we're mighty, so each of us has a region, and we support each of our schools in that region to ensure that PBS is for everyone. So it's important to note that PBS is proactive. We are constantly trying to stay in front of things. We have, you are welcome to come to any of our positive behavior trainings. We want to make sure that our schools understand that PBS is proactive. How are we clarifying expected behaviors? And this is a conversation that happens at first small with the team, and then it's rolled out to the school to ensure that everyone understands that language, everyone is involved in this process, and the students have a voice. And I can send to Keith later, but on our roles and responsibilities on each team, we do ask that there's a student involved on the team, and we do ask that our schools have parents involved, because who better to tell you what they need than the student themselves. We're explicitly teaching those behaviors. We're bringing students in on those conversations. How is it that you want to be taught? What does this look like from your perspective? At the same time, using our teachers' expertise of how can we roll this out and what does this look like? PBS is instructional. Again, it's that teaching piece. We're not just throwing it out there and assuming that everyone knows what respectful is, assuming everyone knows what responsible is, assuming everyone knows what being safe is. We're teaching it. We're rolling it out. Most times you'll see on a lot of our school campuses, they have mini lesson plans. They take each letter of their matrix and they roll that out day by day, and they teach their students, what does it mean to have pride? What does it mean to have integrity? What does it mean to be disciplined? So it is an instructional approach. We are teaching these things. We are having these conversations. We're not just leaving it out there for the assumption of you'll understand. So here's one of our favorite quotes that we always include in every one of our trainings. And this one I will read word from word. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, we teach, or do we punish? Why can't we finish the last sentence as automatically as we do the others? And this is the purpose of positive behavior support. We are trying to change the mindset and mind frame that discipline, everything that follows discipline, are consequences. Not all the time. We should use discipline as an instructional approach to say, here is the misbehavior, but let's not only replace that misbehavior, but let me teach you what is to be expected when this happened, and let's have this conversation. Because for a lot of our students, they aren't misbehaving because they want to. They may be misbehaving because no one has ever taught them the purpose or the proper behavior to display in that moment. So positive behavior support, while we understand that misbehaviors do happen, our approach is a little different. Let's have this conversation. Let's use this opportunity as a reteach opportunity and not just a punitive one. And so with that being said, PBS is functional. It is a framework. It is not a bribery system. We're not saying if you do this, then you get this. But we are saying when you do this, you get this. Everyone loves a reward. I'm sure we all love our jobs, but our reward is our pay. For a lot of our teachers, their incentives and their rewards are they're highly effective. So the same with students. We want to make sure that when they're doing what is asked of them, that we are ensuring that we are rewarding these behaviors, because so many times we're so focused on the misbehaviors that we miss the students that are behaving and doing what they're supposed to do. So we want to make sure that we don't lose those students that are always exhibiting those positive behaviors. We want to acknowledge them. We want to put them on the forefront, and we want to hold them up and let them know we see you, we thank you, we're proud of you. And then PBS is a process. Like I said, it doesn't just start in August and end in August. This is something that should go throughout the year. And even during the summertime, this is the time where we're revamping. We're looking over our data. What can we do better? What did we see as a trend in the district? What can we bring to our internal coaches to ensure the success of PBS on their campus? So PBS is a process. And again, it's that understanding that it's not a one-size-fits-all. We have to look at each data set, each school as its own individual, and this is why we have our SSCB coaches, so that we can support our schools in whichever way they may need us. What PBS is not, and so a lot of times what we try to make sure that we put out there is the same way, and this is that teaching part, the same way you know something is the same way you have to know what it is not. So PBS is not a specific practice, is what we've been saying. It is not limited to any particular group. It's for all students. So if you're seeing that it's limited to groups, that is not PBS, and that is not what we promote and how we promote it. And one thing that we always want to make sure that we know is PBS is not new. It's based on a long history of behavioral practice, and that's that research piece. We're going to that research. We're going to those evidence-based practices. We're going to what we know works and then taking it and making it fit the needs of our schools and our babies. PBS is a team process, and here's one of the quotes that we often use with our internal coaches. Every organization has a culture, that history and underlining set of unwritten expectations that shape everything about the school. A school culture influences the way people think, feel, and act. Positive behavior support is all about the culture and climate of the school. Thus, you hear me keep saying single school culture. That is a push. That is something that we say. We want to make sure that the language looks the same from the principal to the AP to the teachers to the students. What I mean by language, if a student is needing to have a conversation about misbehaviors, we're referring to the matrix to use that language. You weren't being responsible when you weren't being respectful when you. And that way we streamline a lot of those conversations, because if Keith were to send a student to me, I can pick the conversation right up where Keith left it, because I can say, what did Mr. Keith speak to you about? Oh, we were talking about being respectful. I go to the matrix, perfect. Now let's pick up this conversation and continue. So that is what we mean when we say creating that streamline and that single school culture of language. PBS is culturally responsive, and we had a whole training with our internal coaches to make sure that we have that equity piece important, because equity is so important in the work that we do. It's so important that our ICs and our teachers know how they show up. So when we talk about identity, how do you show up? How do the students see you? How do you see your students? It's important to note that there are differences, and that's okay, but it's important to know how you show up. And then we talk about voice. Everyone's voice should be heard. We have to be respectful, and we have to learn to agree to disagree. That is something that we push. But our students' voices are just as impactful and powerful as our teachers' voices, as our parents' voices. So we want to hear those voices, and we want to know that there is a makeup of all different things. And then how do we have the supportive, how do we have the supportive environment? And what does that look like? That piece is where you're bringing in all your different cultures. We're talking about this. Does this make you feel comfortable? Well, what does this do? Let's have these hard conversations, and let's narrow down to how can we create a melting pot where all of our students feel included, all of our students feel safe enough to express their cultures and be okay with that. And that leads straight into situational appropriateness, knowing when it's okay to speak up, when it's not okay, knowing when it's okay to really have those conversations, and then always data for equity. We're asking our schools, and we'll talk about model school, but one of the biggest things in model school is, are you not suspending one subgroup over the other subgroup? And really having those hard conversations of, if you are suspending a subgroup more than the other, why? Look at that data. Tell me. Look at the referral rate. Did one subgroup get the same amount of referrals, but then the suspensions look different? And those are the hard conversations that we are asking our schools to have. And you'll see in a minute that the data shows that our schools are having these hard conversations and they're doing a good job with them. The goals of being culturally responsive at the school is there. We're holding high expectations, not just for all students, but ensuring that we hold the same expectations for all staff and parents. We're using students' cultures and experience to enhance their learning. So we're talking about their cultures. We're embedding that into our everyday life. We're having different months where we're talking about maybe the Haitian Creole community. Maybe we're talking about Hispanics this month. We're making sure that all of our students understand that their culture is just as important as the next. So here is our matrix, and we apologize that it's so small, but this is our matrix for the district. And our acronym for the district is SAFE. That's safe, accountable, fidelity, and excellence. And this is what I was speaking to you about earlier. This is the matrix that most students will follow. This is the matrix that our staff can follow. What does it look like to be safe while you're in the office? What does it look like to be safe in hallways, dining areas? And all of those bullets break down what it looks like and how one student should act. But again, we're never assuming that our students are reading these, so we're really breaking these down and teaching them to our students. And when we're on campuses, we being the SSCB coaches, we're asking kids, hey, tell me what safe means. Have you gotten any incentives this week for being safe? What does that look like? So we're ensuring that the language is there, the students understand the language and their matrix. We have another example of a school-wide behavior matrix. So some of them get very creative with it. It's really fun. And the work doesn't stop with us. So we encourage you when you're on these campuses to look for their matrix. Use this language. Ask, hey, what are your universal guidelines? Talk to the students. Ask them, do they understand and do they know the universal guidelines? So when students are misbehaving or maybe have issues, we throw out there, here's some things that you can do. And notice that all of these consequences, so to speak, none of them have anything to do with the referral, because our goal is to keep the student in class and keep them focused. So we're saying that when students misbehave, we're having that teacher-student conference, and it's not just a conversation off the wall, but we have what we call a pre-planned discussion. You're using your matrix to have this conversation to ensure that we have that single school culture of language. And it's pre-planned for a reason, because we don't want to go down a rabbit hole. We want to stick to the facts that happen. We want to ensure that our students understand the behavior and nothing else, okay? We're reteaching of the expectations. Maybe we're doing a reflection forum. And as always, we encourage our schools, keep parents involved. Use that parent contact. Use the power of the parents, because who better to help you with that child than the parent? We have our examples of Tier 1, Tier 2 behaviors, and we know that this is important because what do they look like when they're behaving? And we know that Tier 1 and Tier 2 babies look different. So what do they look like when they're behaving? And when they're not, what can you put in place that is not punitive? So we have that there. Our data, these are some of our data sources that we use. We use the SAS, and that's to get the voices of all of our teachers. Where do you think we are in this process? What can we do better? What are some things that you would like to see in place? That's the SAS. And then that last piece of data is the end of the year data, which is focusing on and asking the team, hey, are you suspending these subgroups, and the conversations around this, and it helps them to create an action plan if they do find that one subgroup is being suspended more than the other. Here we like to showcase that it is a reward system, and we are big on ensuring that our staff are having rewards. So a couple of pictures of, us on campus and our schools really doing the work and really promoting positive behavior support. So when we talk about that research and we talk about, okay, so where are we as a district? We are proud to say that each year we are gaining in model school status. And what does model school mean? That means that our schools are doing what they should as far as discipline with equitable outcomes, having that language up, the matrix, but it really is based off that discipline. are we making sure that the discipline and the outcomes are equitable? And that is one of the biggest questions on the application that they have to answer. As you can see, this year we're at 91, and we're so thankful because with, the permission of Keith, we are now hosting our first Model School of Excellence banquet to really reward the internal coaches. So we're really trying to practice what we preach. So we're rewarding our internal coaches for all of the work that they've done, and just 91 is a great number, and so we hope to surpass that this year.
And she's doing that today, and that's why we let her go first, so she can.
Yeah, I know you guys like, oh, she's so cute. I'm going to a banquet, guys. And so we always leave with this. Because you believed I was capable of behaving decently, I did. And that's what PBS says. If you believe it, they're going to do it. And so our contact information, so Dr. Selena Johnson is our DC district coordinator from Palm Beach County, and I am her support person. Thank you.
So, thank Ambrose.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambrose.
And I just want to say, when this first came out in the district, I was still principal at a high school, and I was one of the pilot schools implement. And I said to the person at the time, I don't want to do what is this PBS stuff? And so I have to say, I said, okay, I'll do it. And I said, it was the best thing since sliced bread. It really, truly did change the culture, and it was at Boynton Beach High School. And it was just fantastic. The research behind it really backs up when you implement that with fidelity. So at this time, Madam Chair, I'll turn over for questions.
Yes. So yes, we have time for question. We do have several things on the agenda, so I will ask if there are no objections that we please keep our questions to a minimum, whatever that minimum that you're comfortable with, but just be mindful that there are some other issues that's on the agenda that we would like to get to. So we'll open the floor to questions, and please hold your follow-ups. We're going to go in the order of Cassandra was the first hand that I saw, Carrie Whittle online, and then Mr. Rhodes and Ms. Kimberly. I don't know if I saw any other hands. I only have two eyes, but yes. So Cassandra, Carrie, Mr. Rhodes, Kimberly, in that order. And Myra as well.
I just want to say, Ms. Ambrose, first of all, it's so good to see you. Great work. This is really encouraging, the work that you all are doing around this positive behavior support. I just have a quick question, and that is, you said our coaches, and does that mean that there are coaches on every campus already, or are we moving toward that?
No, yes, ma'am. There are coaches on every campus. We call them our internal coaches, and that is who we speak to. But and they are chosen by the principal or the AP. Remember, we talked about that administrative support. But yes, there is an internal coach on every campus, and that is our direct report. So we talk to them, and they push the work out. No problem.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm very familiar with PBS. It's an excellent program. It's grounded in tons of research and as well as behavioral principles. So I have, I think it's such a great program. My question, however, I am with the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, and sometimes our students, especially those with autism, need an extra level of support that has a little bit more of an ABA type background, applied behavior analysis, to a board-certified behavior analyst. I didn't know if you had another level of support for some of our kids that might have that particular need.
So that's a great question, and we do. And so what I will say, Ms. Whittle, is Royal Palm School, I encourage you to go there. Their PBS program is absolutely amazing, and they are working towards being a model school this year. You walk that campus, and if for those of you that don't know, Royal Palm is our exceptional student site. Those kids know the language. They know PBS, they can speak to it. And so we often do rely on that school to help us when our other schools need more help with our students that may be on the spectrum. But absolutely, we encourage our coaches to really meet the needs. We couldn't include So it's either circles or triangles sometimes, right? We went with the circles this time. But a lot of times we do put that triangle in to say, what are we doing at tier 1? And that's what, I don't know if you saw it, but the behaviors when I had the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, that's what breaks down what does their appropriate behavior look like, and then what can you do when their behavior is maybe needs some redirection. So we have that guide for our internal coaches, and we do have that conversation. But I do implore you and encourage you to go see Royal Palm School. They are doing amazing with PBS.
Yes, and again, so there is that extra level beyond PBS a little bit more that gets into more of the behavioral principles?
Yes, and Keith could share the PowerPoint and you'll see it in there. We literally lay it out. Tier 1, here's what you can do. Tier 2, here's what you can do. Tier 3, here's what you can do. And not just what you can do, but what does the appropriate behavior look like for that particular student? Because we know that behaviors look different.
Thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
Yes. In the planning process, I noticed you was mentioned you have students, staff. Are there any parents involved in the planning stages? Because that's an important entity in making this thing happen. And
Yes.
I applaud you for having someone on campus. Because Keith, you remember when you was in the top administration, we talked about getting someone on campus. So I applaud you guys for putting that in place to have someone on campus to increment this, because it's so important, the kids, the discipline part. So are parents involved in the planning stage?
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to each school looks different and it's up to the school. But yes, parents are in the planning process and should be, and so are students. And one thing I want to clarify and make clear, when we're going over that data during the meeting, parents and students are not allowed in that part of the meeting, but we do bring the parents in for that planning process. And not only just the planning, but how are we doing as a school from the perspective of the parent? So absolutely.
And I do think that's an area for improvement as a system.
Yeah, it's so important that the expectations is drilled down to the parent, because there could be an important entity in making sure that it's reinforced when they leave the school, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll take that back.
And we encourage our PBS to go before SAC as well and have those conversations. Okay.
Okay. I don't know how to get this. Can you hear me now? Is it?
Just bring it closer to you.
Okay. Is this working?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have 2 requests for information that can be sent out after the meeting, and then a question. One is, may we see the end-of-year data for the district that you have? And
Yeah.
when are the trainings? Because in case any of us are interested in attending. And then, I guess this is somewhat of a comment. I have always been impressed with your department and everything you do.
Thank you.
My observation as somebody who represents students with disabilities is that a lot of schools have not really taken to heart the lessons you're trying to teach them and are not implementing it. And it could be a response to the Marjorie Stoneham Douglas laws and teachers being afraid and feeling they have to take extreme measures, but I am seeing most of my caseload, instead of dyslexia, not getting the services, is kids being suspended, kids having threat assessments, Baker Acts, not as many arrests, but some of them. So I don't know that the schools are taking all of this to heart, and I've seen principals who didn't seem to be on board with it. And I know there are so many schools and there's only so many of you, but I just wanted to say we need a lot more. So hopefully we can get more people like you out there to help teach them and get them on board.
Yeah, so we're working on cloning her. But I will say you're spot on that we have some fidelity issues, and especially since coming back from the pandemic. We've seen an increase in disciplinary referrals. We've talked about that. And so I think it was October you presented. So in October, you know, when we came back to school, we were dealing with the Delta variant. So schools are running around. It couldn't have been a worst case scenario. When kids needed to be retaught expectations more than ever after being out of school for so long, schools are running around doing contact tracing and dealing with the Delta variant and really staying up all night letting parents know, hey, you were close contact. So October, we started to begin a retool with our principals and a trainee, which the principals loved it and realized they do need to go back and reteach all this. So you're spot on. We do have to get back, and we're coming back to the principals again next month to bring more of this. And we've got a new dashboard that I just saw the first peek of it yesterday, which is going to be even easier for the schools to really drill down faster. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Myra? Myra's going to be the last comment on this, and then we're going to
Can I have a question before you close? Yeah.
Yes, Myra, then Mr. Pagan, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. Go ahead, Myra.
Okay, I just have one comment. Thank you for the presentation. It was very good. I'm concerned that we don't include district level staff and administrators in the whole teaching expectations. In order for this to work in schools, the institution has to change too, in order to allow it to happen consistently throughout the district. So while I think the district has a history of looking out only at teachers and schools when this is a comprehensive issue. And so, for example, and I know we've talked about behavior, we talked a little bit about curriculum, but in order for teachers and administrators to make change where they are, they have to have it and see it for district level. Yeah. And then the support will authentically be there, I think.
And
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So one of the examples I think of, just because it's at the top of my head right now, is that we're expecting teachers, for example, to infuse when the people at district who are in teaching and learning haven't ever had the infusion training, haven't had, so that there's consistency. I think we should look at the district just the way we're looking at schools, teachers, and administrators, school-based. So it was excellent, but I'm hoping to see that.
So I'm glad you said that, and we didn't put that in here, and I can absolutely send that presentation to Mr. Oswald as well. We're just as we ask our schools to look at data, we're always constantly looking at our data as well. And so last year, with the leadership of our manager, Dr. Ruth, we noticed that was the disconnect. So we actually created a training, and it's been around now for a year, and I can give you the numbers on how many district staff and admin has been trained, but it's literally called PBS Through the Lenses of Leadership. So we do offer that training to the district leadership and our admin. I can get the number to Keith for as how many people have taken it. We have had admin and district staff take it, and we look through the lens of what can you do as a district personnel to support schools when you're on campus, and what can you do as an admin on campus to support those teachers. So we actually do have that in place, and we launched it last summer.
Okay. Now, thank you for that. I think I'm thinking more in terms of rather than just training, for the policy pieces. We look at the schools, we look at the teachers, we look at the students, we're looking and supporting at the principals and assistant principals. But where and how can we start looking at the district in terms of policy? For example, is each office looking at their policies and procedures, reviewing them, and then looking at them and saying, okay, how could we make this more equitable? Is this policy more harmful than it is helping? So really looking at the district, not just, oh, we're going to have a training and we'll send them out, but rather, sort of sealing the deal, if you will,
Yes.
And going over policy and procedure. Yes, we can do trainings on, equity, curriculum, all of those things with administrators and district staff.
Yes.
But are we looking at policies and procedures that come out of every office the way we're looking at each school?
So, Dr. Bazemore, couldn't agree with you more. Actually, Ms. Simmons has been working on a tool. We've been kind of behind the scenes right now on approach to do that, and I was going to be reaching out to you because of your work that you've done for some feedback on a tool that in the future we'll be bringing to this group. But absolutely a way to embed a process and a protocol to ensure that equity is embedded and people have to reflect on it through whatever line of work you do with the school district. So.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So one more, Mr. Pagan.
Thank you. Great program. Congratulations. That's really awesome. The question that I have is in terms of level of awareness of the parents of this program. How do they know that this program exists, number one? Number two, who is going to be their contact person at each school so that if they have a kid that has some behavioral issues or they have some health problem, whatever, where they can go to that this could, be resolved or addressed or whatever might be the term, and I'm thinking in terms of mental health becoming a big issue, it's something that is growing by leaps and bounds, and we all know that, especially during the pandemic. And even with an incident that happened with the school a couple of weeks ago, was, Palm Beach Post published about the student, and then there was a group of the community that wanted to raise a protest on the school. And they called me and I said, that's not the way to do this, So, and we work it out. So if there's a level of information, a level of awareness that we can help, and communicate this, so that it's not at the teacher level or at the, with the students and more than that. That is another step. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'll answer the first one and then I'll refer to Keith for the second. As far as how do we get this information out, it's on the Google Classrooms, the matrix is, it's on their school website. We ask that they send it out at the beginning of the year, not just the beginning, remember it's a process, so we ask that they send it out again after Christmas break, that letter, that matrix, so that we're all using that same language. And a lot of times, and I get it from my kids' schools, we're asking when they do those robocalls, they're saying, are you showing your pride today? And what does pride mean? So they're hearing it and they're seeing it. So as far as that's how we push out communication to our parents. And we do ask them to have the parents use that same language at home. And then I'll refer to Mr. Oswald for the second.
Just real quick, because I know we need more, but I will say it's definitely an area we have to improve upon. So, and I know we have it on one of our long-term agenda items is to talk about parent involvement, and a discussion I really want to have with this group. What are some other ways that we reach out and make sure that we're connecting? Because you're absolutely right. With what we're seeing on some of the campuses, with the conversation earlier around fidelity, we've got to really be more creative in our approaches to make sure that parents are aware of these expectations and this whole process so that they're part of this whole work.
And when you mentioned about the languages, that's really key because you got to keep in mind that about 37% of the students are Hispanics, and I'm willing to bet that more than 50% of the parents of those kids, they don't speak English.
Right.
So they don't know what the heck is going on. They don't know and the kids want to keep control. So I don't tell my dad. I don't tell my mom. That's my information. So.
And most of our schools do a good job with making sure the matrix is in two languages, the English and the dominant language, the other dominant language on campus. Our schools do a great job with that.
Excellent.
Ms. Ambrose, thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. And before you leave, I do like to ask if there's any recommendation as it relates to the DDC committee that you would like for us to bring or, that you have for us. Any comments, questions, concerns that you have for us?
We would like to thank you for having us involved and just kind of giving Mr. Oswald his kudos because he's been working closely with us to ensure that we get more fidelity around positive behavior support. So I'm already kind of shaking because I know after this meeting Keith's going to call another one. So we're just excited to be doing this work and really getting it out there and promoting it even more because when it works, it works. And so we just thank you for having us. We're excited about the work. We're excited to do more of the work. And we're excited to have Mr. Oswald now be so hands-on with this program because he is like, tell me what's not being done. Tell me what you need from me. So we do see a shift and change that is happening around positive behavior support. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And just to end this, positive behavior support, and anyone from the committee could correct me if I'm wrong, in the November 18th meeting, this presentation came about because we were talking about, after Mr. Pete's presentation after Pete Stewart's presentation on transgender and athletics, there was a motion by Carla Donaldson to require training on bullying and the risk factors regarding our students for all teachers and staff. And that is where this whole PBS understanding, the PBS component came into play, and we wanted to understand a little bit more about PBS. And so we thank you, Mr. Oswald, for bringing that. And I know one of that motion read was to require training on bullying and the risk factors regarding our students for all teachers and staff. And while Ms. Ambrose may not have those exact, training and bullying, she did say that she would get us those numbers. But more specifically, I just want to make sure with all the presentation, this wonderful presentation, we're not getting lost in what we actually asked for, which was the training on the bullying and the risk factors regarding students for all teachers and staff. Without further ado, I do want to apologize for the delay in time and want to recognize our next speaker, who I will allow Mr. Oswald to present, which is a paper presentation. And this presentation is 15 minutes. I ask that if you have any questions, please write them as she's stating them, and please be respectful, because this is a 15-minute presentation with no more than 15 minutes to answer any questions. And if we could really tailor down on the questions, it'll be great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, I just want to acknowledge, so that you can mark down that in the chat box, Ms. Mendez did say that she would like to present a public comment today. She'll use the 2 minutes allowed.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Mendez would like to do a public comment at the end, and she'll share the screen
Time is allowed. Yes,
at the end,
yes.
during public comment. Thank you, Ms. Mendez. And Robin, thank you for your patience in being here today. So, and I know we had a big agenda, but I really wanted to get this paper on here. We talk about equity issues. So we have a lot of instructional loss to address, and the district has purchased this program called Paper, which is essentially a 24/7 tutoring. So we wanted to give you an overview, because we want you to share this from the rooftops with everybody you touch, anybody who needs support, that this is available to all of our kids, secondary kids, 6 to 12 in Palm Beach County. So, Robin, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and then I will, you just tell me when you want to change the slides.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and share a little bit more about Paper with you all. We are an educational support system, and Palm Beach has partnered with us. They started back at the beginning of this year, 2022. So we're really excited for all of that's to come. So for the quick agenda, I'm going to talk about Paper in Palm Beach, and then we're just going to get into the Paper experience. We won't be able to take a look at a demo today, but I'm happy to come back at a later date if you're interested in looking at that. So you can go down to the next 2 slides. So Paper's mission is to provide equitable, personalized, and scalable academic support that serves every member of the school community. So we really focus on that one-to-one experience. And that really aligns with Palm Beach's mission to educate, affirm, and inspire within an equity-embedded school system. And we're really here to make sure that that does come true. So you can go to the next couple of slides. So the Paper experience. We are an instant and unlimited 24/7 tutoring support through a live chat. And that live chat has tutors on the other end all across North America that are expertises in over 200 subjects. And those live chats can be given in English, Spanish, or French. We do have Mandarin that's also coming up on the 24/7 mark. And I do know that Haitian Creole is a language that Palm Beach has been requesting service for. And I've been working with our service team to see how often we can get those tutors online as well. There is also an aspect that's unlimited essay review. So a student can turn in any written work, whether that's an English essay, a social studies essay, college application essay, scholarship essay, lab report, and have that returned to them within 24 hours with annotated feedback. We are accessible on any device, as well as all of the interactions are recorded and transparent for teachers and administrators, as we do partner through the student information system, and all students have access to this through the district portal. So the next slide will talk about who our tutors are. We don't want to replace the teachers at all. I'm a former teacher and instructional coach myself, and we want to make sure that the tutors are there to support the teachers and the students in the concepts that they're learning that day. So our tutors are well trained in what we've referred to as the Socratic Method. They are culturally diverse and multilingual, and they also don't provide they do provide expertise in their content area. Sure. They are background checked, vetted, screened, and they do pass a subject matter exam. They are trained also in an approachable, supportive manner so that all students feel confident at the end of each session. They are current college students, recent graduates, former teachers themselves. They are all employees of Paper, which makes them different from various other tutoring companies. They have a set schedule and they know when they're going to log in. So a little bit more about the Socratic Method that I mentioned before. Tutors do not provide any answers to students. This does frustrate the students a little bit as they're used to getting that immediate gratification, but students will come into a tutoring session with a question from their school day. The tutors will identify any knowledge gaps that can be happening and activate any prior knowledge that they may need in order to guide them through that problem-solving experience. So our tutors will be asking probing questions and clarifying any points of confusion and misconception before the student leaves the session, and hopefully feeling more confident and ready and able to solve problems like this in the future. I believe that might be it. I wanted to make sure that there were time for some questions. Those are our main points here. We are a 24/7, 365 unlimited service at no cost to students or their families. The whole idea is that if a student isn't able to get that extra help support after school, they do have access to this at any time of the day. And we are a live help and an essay review partnership. We do have parent info sessions twice a month in English and in Spanish. The Spanish-speaking session is today at 6 p.m., but there is also an English-speaking one at February 8th. I will also be working with the marketing team to get a live parent session as well that I can host in February. And I believe that it's time for if there are any questions.
And Robin, could you just talk a little bit about the dashboards that schools receive so we can progress monitor?
Sure. So the students will see a dashboard that has tiles that are directly aligned with their class schedule. So if they have 6 classes, they will see 6 tiles with their teacher name under it. So if they're taking Algebra 1, it will have their teacher's name underneath it, and they would be able to click Ask a Tutor, and it'll connect them with a tutor in under 15 seconds. Then it's going to look like an iMessage chat going back and forth. So students will be typing back and forth with that tutor. They're able to send files, draw on a whiteboard, take a screenshot of the problem that they're working on, and upload that as well. With the essay review, it will need to be in a PDF, and they'll also be able to upload their teacher's directions and instructions so that the tutors or the essay reviewers are really giving feedback that truly aligns to what the teacher is expecting.
And also the schools, so the principals as well as the school district. So I have a dashboard now where I can see how many sessions have occurred. We can drill down by school, by student. It's pretty impressive so that we can see where we have equity issues. I think last time I checked a couple days ago, this has only been out like 2 or 3 weeks, and 10,000 tutoring sessions in the district so far. Over 10,000, it's probably higher by now.
Yes, most definitely. It parses down by site, by grade level, day of the week, hour, and administrators and teachers can see activities that are aligned with their their roster. So at a site level, a district level, you'd be able to see all that activity.
So, thank you, Robin. And then, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over for questions.
At this time, the floor is open for questions. The only question that I had is, with all the breakdowns, do they have a breakdown for subgroups?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
With all the breakdowns that you had, you said by teachers, do they have a breakdown for subgroups?
That is something our product team is currently working on right now. It has been a feature that principals and leadership has been asking for.
Okay. Any further questions at this time? Mr. Rhodes?
Yes. Am I understanding that the student will have accessibility to this program from 6 to 12 after school p.m.?
No, sixth grade.
Oh, 6 to 12. Okay, I thought it was time.
They can do it 24/7.
Oh, good.
Is what I
Okay.
heard.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. Thank you.
We got a question in the chat box. How do we make sure that those students who need this service the most have access to it, having computer and connectivity? So I know our schools have been training teachers, communities, parents about this. Right now, we are at a one-to-one computer device. So, and if any family needs assistance with connectivity in the home, we've done everything from working with Comcast, buying Wi-Fi devices for the home. So we work with the families who need that so that everybody has connectivity at home. In addition, many of our teachers are also using this in the classroom so that kids can see. So they're actually teaching, like we just had the Pbs presentation, so explicitly teaching kids how to use this so they can have this additional support. And you're exactly right. We want to make sure the kids who need this the most. I was talking to a principal yesterday of one of our alternative schools who hadn't had anybody sign on yet. He had a few sign on. I told him we need to talk to him about making sure he taught this to his teachers and got right on it so his kids would have access. So the dashboard really helps us monitor that, Ms. Mendez.
All right, we're going to take a question from Ms. Whittle, and then we're going to move on to the next topic, next area of our agenda.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, do you have specific and specialized instruction for individuals that might have disabilities or people that might be able to support them?
So we do have tutors that have a special ed certification. Unfortunately, right now with the scalable of the product, we can't necessarily combine them with a specific student. And also, we don't have any personal information from the student through that platform. So that's all private information that the school has. So unfortunately, we can't personalize that pairing. But it is something that's on our radar to hope that we can figure out in the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to quickly follow up on that. Some of our students have access points, which is a modified curriculum. Do you have the capability of helping those students?
Yes, I'm not familiar with access points. Is that still like a core like within topics of content areas, or?
It is, but it's for students with intellectual disabilities, so it's very much simplified and broken down at a much lower level.
Mm-hmm. So our tutors do support K through 12, and we don't have the student's grade level once you're connected with a tutor. So the tutor only sees the first name and first initial of the last name of a student. So they're really meeting the student where they are coming from, and they don't have access to what they should, the standards-based grade level that the student is associated with.
And just for clarification, our contract is 6/12. So
correct.
Quick.
Right. So they have. So I just want to make sure it's clear now.
Yeah, the contract is 6/12, but if a student is below grade level, our tutors are capable of access to that.
This is one of those committees that we have a lot of questions, and I love to entertain all of them, but we do have to be respectful of the agenda and our time that we are on the agenda.
Just one ask. One ask I have is that you share this with 3 people.
I was just going to ask.
Okay. To share this with 3 people in the community, people you know. Make sure if they don't know about it, if you know someone who's running an after-school program or helping other kids, let them know about this, and to reach out to the principal or school if they don't know how to get on. We really want to make sure that our kids that need this have access to this, and we can really address that unfinished learning that occurred during the pandemic. Robin, really appreciate you being here.
Robin, I can see, I think I saw one, like I can't read too far from here, but I think I saw something about if you have any questions or further questions, you can reach Robin. Robin is putting her email in the chat box, and for the people that's in the room, staff will send it out to us directly in a follow-up email. I'll make sure I follow up with Ms. Susan, and she can send us that email. And I just want to make sure that we're getting what I can see the thing popping up. It's a lot of stuff that just keeps popping up. Make sure if we're reading those questions.
The question was,
okay.
The question was, can students choose their own, are students able to choose their tutors, male, female, race, etc.? Robin responded, they are not able to choose their tutors, but if they are not happy with their current tutors, they can transfer to a new tutor. Okay. Dr. Robinson just put in, can people send their questions and get the answers in writing and share those Q&A with the entire DDEC? Yes, we certainly can, so just email us the questions that you have that you'd like further follow-up.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much. Again, Robin, on behalf of the DDEC, thank you for this presentation, and we will be sharing this out with our respective communities.
Awesome.
All right. We have 2 more items on the agenda, so we're going to move along. I am going to reiterate, as we sent this out in email, one of our committee members, vice chair, right? Oh, no. Oh, wait, vice chair. One of our committee members did, we're going to move on to the DDEC statement revision, Fairness and Women's Support Act on the agenda. This is an unfinished business. One of our committee members provided us with a draft of this letter to the state senators, and I will give the floor to Emmy. I just would like to make sure we know that this is not the working committee. We have asked that everyone come with revision ready or should have sent their revision ready. If you didn't get something from me or she didn't get something from anyone on the committee, that means that there was no revisions that was necessary to this letter. So that's how I'm going to take it, but I'm going to also be on the side of maybe you didn't see the letter, but we do want it to be revision ready, and we should not spend more than 15 minutes going through this letter because the information was sent to us in advance for us to do the work. All right? So, Emmy, if you may take the floor.
Great, thank you. So just to recap why we're doing this and where we're at, a few months ago now, some questions were raised about the impacts on transgender students in light of the 2021 transgender athlete ban, which prohibits transgender girls from playing on the sports team that aligns with their gender in public schools. A lot has happened over the past few months. We had a training from Pete Stewart, who brought to the attention of the DDEC the bullying risks, the suicide risks, the serious challenges that LGBTQ students face in public schools in Palm Beach County specifically, also nationwide. So I set out to write this letter in support of a bill that would repeal the transgender athlete ban. But 2 other bills that have serious implications for LGBTQ youth have gone through committee in the past week. This is a very timely issue. It's an urgent matter. And these 2 bills would all of what we learned from Pete Stewart at the last meeting, it would make all of those things worse. Would you like me to read the letter out loud for the people in the chat? Okay. Dear Florida State Senators and State Representatives, as proponents of inclusion and equity for all, we, the undersigned, stand in solidarity with and for LGBTQ students in opposing discriminatory legislation recently introduced in this year's legislative session. The proposed HB 1557 and SB 1834 would ban classroom discussions about sexual orientation and gender identity, erasing LGBTQ history, culture, and identity, while forcing schools to out LGBTQ students to parents, even if doing so would endanger the child. In addition, HB 7 and SB 148 would prohibit diversity training for school staff, reaffirm the transgender athlete ban by replacing the word gender with sex in school statutes, and remove gender diversity education from human reproduction courses. It has been well documented that LGBTQ youth face significant disparities in suicide risk, self-harm, homelessness, and bullying compared to their straight and cisgender peers. These risks increase when LGBTQ students do not have access to affirming school environments. An affirming school environment provides an inclusive curriculum, validates LGBTQ identities, and educates school staff about their students' unique struggles. The statistics are frightening. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 24, and LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. It's estimated that more than 1.8 million LGBTQ youth ages 13 to 24 seriously consider suicide each year in the U.S., and at least one attempts suicide every 45 seconds. 62% of LGBTQ youth reported symptoms of major depressive disorder in 2021, including more than 2 in 3 transgender and non-binary youth. In Palm Beach County schools, nearly 30% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual students were teased specifically for their identities, 40% engaged in self-harm, and nearly 35% considered suicide. 94% of LGBTQ youth reported that recent politics negatively impacted their mental health. We, the undersigned organizations, recognize the significant risks to LGBTQ youth. We support their existence, well-being, and health, especially in our schools, so they may grow into their full potential as healthy, happy, and productive members of society.
At this time, the floor is open for comments, questions, or input.
Are we as a committee able to sign on? How quickly is this moving? Because when is the next board meeting?
February 23rd.
Okay, are we as a committee able to sign on? Or is that forbidden and we have to get board approval first?
No, this is our letter. We, as a committee, can sign on, but if I remember correctly, we can sign on as a committee, but based on the motion, it would also be, we can sign on and send out to subsequently other community organizations or...
From my understanding, I thought we were going to take this letter and recommend that the school board signs on in support.
The school board and other community organizations.
And other community
That
organizations.
is correct.
Yes.
This is the letter that is being proposed by the DDEC to the school board.
Okay, but I was thinking of moving because I don't know how soon this needs to go out in case they start, put it on a new agenda or decide to vote on it. So if you need to send it out before the school board meeting, are we able to have me make a motion and everyone vote on it that as a committee we sign on? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I am going to push back on that because respectively, we are here not as individuals, we are here as agencies. So agencies would need to sign on. My agency stand ready, both Florida PTA and Palm Beach County Council PTA stands ready to sign on. So that was what we said, to take the letter to your agencies and make sure that they are okay. So I cannot sign on as an individual or the chair of the DDC. I have to respectively sign on as an agency because I'm not put here as an individual. I'm put here as an agency.
Understood.
So I would think that we respect that process and sign on as an agency and not individuals.
Understood.
I mean, I could be wrong, but that's from what I understood how it should be.
That's what we voted for because we figured that would be more support.
I'm sorry?
That's what we kind of agreed on because we thought that way would be more support coming from other agencies.
So to answer your question, Kimberly, I know that there will be lobby days in Tallahassee on these issues on February 7th and 8th. I don't know the committee schedule, but I do know that both of these bills are moving through committee right now. But I don't know the date that they will be voting on it. But from my understanding, we'll hopefully get this approved today so that we all have permission to go back to our individual organizations and other organizations that we are connected with to get as many sign-ons as possible, and then bring that to the school board at the next meeting for hopefully them to sign on to it if the timing aligns correctly.
Okay.
The only input that I had, I will tell you that Florida PTA is up right now, along with, we have our LegCon this weekend. We will be advocating on, we did take this, we have taken this letter, we're signing on, and we will be advocating as we're walking the hall. We have people at in Tallahassee right now who are walking the floors and who have already stand and will testify and whatever else need while we're up there this from now until whenever. We have someone there every week of the legislative session. So, and I'm depending on this scary virus, I'm still debating if I'm going on Friday. I saw a hand, Mr. Oswald, and then I saw you, Ms. Canetti.
I need just a point of clarification.
Yeah.
So as part of, I know there's not a motion right on the floor, but perhaps recommendation that any agency could use this now is what you're saying? Or is that awaiting potential board action first? I'm just trying to clarify.
Based on the motion, it was presented at the general meeting of DDEC for any revision, considered for adoption by DDEC at the following meeting, then subsequently sent to the school board to be considered. It would then be endorsed by DDEC. I'm just one voice and one vote. We are an advisory to the school district of Palm Beach County. So I would assume that we will get that endorsement from the board first, but if we could get that clarity now.
So I'm going to have to work with legal. So if this is going, because if this is going to be like an advertised item, so it would have to be more than just your board report, because they would not be able to vote on an item during a board report.
Right.
So, and because of timing in the session, somewhat time sensitive, right? So February 23rd is the board meeting, so I'd have to consult with the superintendent as well as our general counsel and Ms. Morgan here about process on something like this. So I just need to clarify. So I didn't want to necessarily impede others who might want to use this. In the meantime, to your point, you said you're going up there potentially next week, and if people need talking points about this legislation, I think we could get multiple things going at one time. Just a thought, but I'll defer to the committee.
And that makes sense. Is Dr. Robinson still on the call? Maybe she can give us some insight as a board member. Make sure.
Yeah, I'm here. What's your question?
We just wanted, if you had any input with the process, or with what Mr. Oswald just said as a board member.
So I'm gonna act like legal. Restate the question, please.
So, my statement was that I said I'll have to work with the superintendent and general counsel. Ms. Morgan is also here to work on process. So if the board were to make a vote to support this, is this something that can be consensus, or does it have to be a formal vote by the board? And then, so that it's, what would the process be to add an agenda item through a committee to ask the board to vote on it? So it's just something that I have not experienced. So Ms. Morgan, I don't know as well if you want to weigh in, or Dr. Robinson.
Well, my thought is, let's just be clear. DDEC is potentially wanting to make a formal recommendation to the board about a statute or a proposed statute. Am I correct?
proposed legislation.
Okay, and so your request is that the board support the position that DDEC takes. Is that what you're saying?
Or possibly sign on to the letter. It looks like the letter has signature line for organizations.
So I would defer to legal, but what I think at this point is these are two separate things. So if you want to write a letter and each of your organizations signs onto it, and it just so happens that you guys meet at DDEC, that's one thing, right? If DDEC wants to formally say to the school board, we want you to take this position, then I think that you present that to the board. It would require that a board member put it on the agenda or at least call a question on it, and the board would have to vote. But I think we're two separate entities.
Okay.
That's my thought. And again, I defer to legal to tell me where I am misguided here. So.
No, so that's correct. So there would be nothing that would preclude each organization from signing the letter and sending it on to their legislative representative, right? In terms of board action, it would need to be put on the next board agenda by either the superintendent or the board chair for the board to consider and vote on, if the board is going to sign on to the letter or support it in any way.
Perfect.
After we have a vote, if we vote in favor, are you willing to be the board member who puts it to the superintendent and board chair? Is that how it goes? Okay.
I have to read it. But I think the third option, though, is a board member can put it on as a discussion item, and then the board collective can direct the superintendent and chair to put it on a future agenda.
Yes.
Right,
That's
so
most ideally, that's how I see it playing out, which would push it back to, I think, potentially early March, there's a special meeting, I believe, so that the discussion would happen.
That would push it out and possibly run into the end of the legislative session, which is the middle of March. So
Keep going to Mike.
Oh, sorry. That is an option to do it as a board discussion item at the next meeting and then to have a vote on it at the meeting after that, but you might run into an issue with the end of the legislative session.
No, we have a meeting next Wednesday. And so if you guys vote on whatever you vote on, let's say you come up with a position statement that says XYZ, DDEC votes on it, says this is our position. You could email that to the board. A board member could put it on as a discussion item for next Wednesday and move it forward at a little faster pace.
Dr. Robinson, did you get the letter, an email, or no?
Did I get which letter? The one you're talking about now?
Yeah, the one that Amy just read.
No, I did not see it, and I'm sorry I was distracted. So.
Okay, I'm going to find my emails and forward it to you.
I also think that Erica Whitfield would probably be someone that would bring it up to discussion. Yesterday, the superintendent and Ms. Whitfield attended the Compass to have a discussion specifically on LGBTQ students in Palm Beach County, and this is something that the students that came brought up in many discussions of the fear of these passing and what that felt for their safety in school. So I think that this is a discussion that is fresh in their minds since it just happened yesterday.
No worries. I think at this point, since it's two separate entities, now it gives me a better understanding. We can move on with the first part, which is the DDEC, and we see the questions that are popping up, and we'll get to them as soon as possible.
Quick question.
So I think let's focus on what's in the realm of the DDEC, and then we can move on to the next thing because of time. So,
yeah,
Mr.
and
Pagan.
this is probably from my personal understanding and knowing. I look up House Bill 1557, and I look Senate Bill 1838, none of this language is in those descriptions that are given on that in there. So I was trying to see how this language, is this an interpretation, or there's a copy from what is written in those Senate bill, but just look it up. And
1834?
yeah, 1834, and the other one, and it doesn't match the wording that is here. So I was a little confused, and I apologize if it was my misunderstanding.
I can clarify some of that. So, yes, you're right. The bill does not say that we will force schools to out LGBTQ students to parents in those words. But if you read the bill, when they say things like requiring district school boards to adopt procedures that comport with certain provisions of law for notifying a student's parents of specified information, yes, that's incredibly vague for bill language, but that's what they intend to do. So if a student comes to a guidance counselor, says, I'm gay, I don't know what to do, my parents won't understand, I don't want to tell them, I'm scared of getting kicked out of my house, this is saying that this opens up the potential for that school having to call that parent and notify them that that student just came out to them. Does that make sense?
Again, that's interpretation. So it could be somebody else who said, no, that means if he wants to kill somebody, I can, not do that. So I'm trying to put the connection between the LGBTQ, the thoughts, what the sex orientation and all that is merged into there. That is not seen as a vague interpretation of something that was read.
Okay, well, something that's a little less vague is here it says, a school district may not encourage classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in primary grade levels or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. So this explicitly says sexual orientation and gender identity, banning it from being discussed in K through 5 schools. So that's where this explicitly says that. The rest of the bill, the language where it's saying parents need to be informed about everything that a student brings up to a teacher having to do with their mental health, that is dangerous for LGBTQ students. There are many situations where that could, where that would apply. But it's specifically dangerous to LGBTQ students because many of them are out with their identities at school because they feel safe there, but they do not feel safe telling their parents about it. So as a teacher, when I was a teacher, this happened to me all the time. As an art teacher, my students felt comfortable with me, and they were making art about their gender identity and the struggle that they faced with that. And I had the protection of not telling their parents about it because I knew that that would result in endangering the child. Abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, even getting kicked out of their own home because of that.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or input or a motion or a comment?
Just, Dr. Robinson just did comment that she read the letter, and if it's the language that comes forward, she can support it. In the chat box.
I move that the committee or council approve it.
Who just said the? Okay, I was going to say, Kenny, you can't do it because you kind of had the floor as the chair.
I second.
I got to write that motion how it was read. I'm sorry. Can you?
I move that we, as a committee, approve the letter and submit it to the board for approval.
Is this, just for clarification, are you moving that the DDEC committee approves the letter for what?
To submit it to the board, the school
Only
board.
to submit?
And before I suggested that as a committee, we approve it and sign on. But I wasn't sure. I thought that was next.
No, it wasn't nixed. It was that we were approving it for the DDC was approving the letter so that it can go out to the respective agencies, our respective agencies, and the board. But I want to make sure.
Okay, then please make that motion.
Sue Davis raised her hand.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I would like to speak to us. I think it's better for the DDEC to approve it as the committee and then send it to the board, as opposed to going to all our individual organizations. Time is of the essence, and the individual organizations would have to then take it to their board and probably wait for a board meeting and discussion, and then they might have questions and all that. And by that time, the legislative session will be over. So I think it's much more time sensitive. Since it's time sensitive, I would rather have the DDEC approve it as a committee and send it to the board.
Thank you for your input, Sue. I'm just going to put a pin right there because we were in the middle of the motion and we were not at discussion at that time. So I just want to make sure I have the motion as it reads. I move that the DDEC committee approves the Fairness and Women's Sports Act. And I wrote that because you said it, but I just want to spell it out.
I want to say the letter as written.
The approved the Fairness and Women's Sport Act letter.
I'm sorry. The letter goes beyond that, so I would just call it the
letter as written. Okay, I move that the DDEC committee approves the letter presented. Sorry about that. I was writing it out because you said the letter. The letter presented at the DDEC as written.
Yes.
This committee approves the letter presented at the DDC as written.
And propose it to the board for approval of their signing on.
Propose to the board immediately. Adding words. Can I add immediately?
So is the intention for it to go to the board for discussion at the special meeting on the 2nd? Sorry, is that the intention? So then the wording would need to read something like, distribute it to the board for discussion and consideration at the February 2nd board meeting, and then from there, once the board discusses it, then they can direct the superintendent or ask the superintendent or the board chair to put it on the agenda for a vote at the following meeting. That would be in the board's purview.
The motion is on the floor. We are now in discussion. Legal's comment with discussion was to, and this would have to come from a committee member, an amendment, but the motion was, I move that the DDC committee approves the letter presented at the DDC as written and proposed to the board. But can you say that again?
So it wouldn't necessarily be for the board to vote on it is the recommendation. It would be to distribute it to the board for their consideration and discussion. And then, of course, we would know our board members who are in support could then, in that discussion at the board meeting, ask the superintendent and or the board chair to put it on the next agenda for a vote to sign on to it.
The February 2nd meeting?
Then vote the 23rd.
Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. So I'm not disagreeing with what legal said. I don't particularly care if you put all that in the motion, but I am going to call the question on the members of DDEC and your organization. So I heard what Sue Davis Killian said about the timing, right? But it seems to me that on whatever the issues are that we're going to deal with Tallahassee, instead of just looking at the school board to write a letter and take a position, that each of you would go back to your organizations as expeditiously as possible to get support for the same letter.
Right.
Right?
Would that be a separate motion?
That's why I asked for this motion to be just what Dr. Robinson is saying, to be tailored to this specific DDEC body. That's why I was saying I can't write it for you because I'm the chair, but we need to focus on the DDEC body. Because if they decide on a 5-2 vote that they're not going to support it, where does that leave us with ours? So that's what I was implying.
So those
Yes.
are two separate things. You can take it up as a separate motion.
Separate motions, correct. And so we've already wrote the now we're at the board. Let's finish this motion, and then we'll go back to the DDC motion. I am ready for you to read the motion.
Kim Spiro moves that the committee approves the letter presented at DDEC as written to distribute to board for consideration and discussion at February 2nd meeting, then put on next board meeting by a board member for vote at February 23rd meeting. Is that correct? Did I?
Yes.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, wait.
Are there any, second the motion, are there any discussion?
So technically, you can't necessarily direct the board to put it on the next
February
agenda,
23rd.
right? So we know that the intention is once they discuss it, for one of them to, or for the consensus to be, for it to be put on the next agenda. So the committee could recommend that it be placed on the agenda, the next agenda, but you can't necessarily direct the board to put it on the agenda.
I recommend the friendly amendment of recommending.
Okay.
The motion was seconded by Ms. Mendez. The question was called. All in favor?
First, I have another friendly amendment. Instead of calling it the letter, I would call it the LGBTQ student support letter. So we have some clarification on what this
second
letter
that.
is.
But it's more
LG
diversity training too, though, right?
Well, yes, but that would support students. LGBTQ student support letter encompasses everything that we say in the letter.
Dr. Robinson, you still have your hands raised, or that was from a previous?
No, it's a new hand raised. So, okay, so I think you guys need to leave the board alone and quit micromanaging the board about how we do it, right?
Right.
Just say, because I actually have another idea, which I'm not going to put out publicly, but Charmaine called me after the meeting, but about how you might be able to get this done. And so, but if the motion passes the way you read it, what my bright idea would be contrary to your motion. So I would suggest that you just say what you want the board to do instead of how to do it. Like, so I think the motion is about approving this letter as a recommendation from DDEC for the school board to add to its legislative advocacy or some such thing like that. But leave all the dates and all that stuff out. You could put expeditiously, as fast as possible, before the legislative session or whatever. But leave those dates out. Just give it some wiggle room, but make your point, please.
Okay.
Okay, so here, can I propose some language? I'm a member. Can I vote? I don't even know if I'm a voting member. But, so whatever the beginning of that was, and then say, and recommend to the school board that they add this position to their legislative advocacy for this legislative session. So I want to see what legal thinks about that language before you consider it.
That definitely gives you some legal room, or wiggle room.
Okay.
Just as long as it's written as a recommendation. So the committee is recommending
to the legislative platform for advocacy.
Oh, wait. Am I a voting member? Can legal tell me?
Just a representative, right, from the board.
Okay. So can Charmaine call me afterwards
Yes.
Am I sunshine violating if I do that?
Sure.
Okay.
She's not a vote. It's not a sunshine because she's not a voting member.
Okay, so legal, just tell me, or tell Charmaine, and if it's okay, Charmaine, call me afterwards. Okay.
Since she's not a voting member, may I make the motion to use the language that Dr. Robinson proposed?
As your revision?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Go ahead.
Is it second?
No, we got to read it out. You can't say.
Okay.
The motion was, I recommend to the school board that they add to the legislative,
To their legislative advocacy for this legislative session.
so the committee approves it.
Is that what you said? Okay.
Removing all of that.
Oh, I'm removing all that. The committee approves the LGBTQ plus student support letter presented at DDEC as written. The committee recommends that the school board add to their legislative advocacy for this legislative session the LGBTQ student support letter presented at DDEC as written. Does that make sense?
So the DDEC, so you're moving that the DDEC approve and recommend the LGBTQ advocacy,
Student support
support letter, and add it to the legislative advocacy of the school board.
Legislative platform.
Or I would say legislative advocacy, because there's an actual platform, so I think legislative advocacy leaves it a little bit more open, as Dr. Robinson recommended.
Okay.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna try it one more time, and then I quit. Okay, I'm gonna try it one more time. Okay. You ready?
Yes.
Kim Spiro moves that the committee approves and recommends the LGBTQ student support letter presented at the DDEC as written to the school board that they add to their legislative advocacy for the legislative session expeditiously. Hello? That's
Second.
It was second by it was second by Dr. Mendez.
Yes, I second again.
Okay.
Okay. The next.
The next motion?
So we got
That-
Well,
so
first
I'm
we have
sorry.
to vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, there was no
Aye.
discussion.
Aye.
The question was called.
any names?
Any nays? Hearing none. Motion passed unanimously. I don't see any opposed. That is.
I'm sustaining. I'm sustaining because of my religion.
I'm sorry.
Abstain. One abstain.
I'm sustaining because of my religion.
Okay.
Rhodes. Okay.
So now the next one.
Next item on the agenda?
Well, do we want
The
to
next
recommend?
motion for this,
Okay,
right?
the next motion is that the members of the DDEC, as heads of organizations, take it back, or at least members of their organizations, take back the letter to their organizations for approval and possible signing on to the letter.
I second.
Is that wording okay? Okay.
The DDEC approves and recommend that the members of the DDEC committee take the letter back to their agencies. Simple, yeah. She's writing it how you wrote it. I'm just saying what I heard in my language.
Is the goal then that we would share it, whether agency approves that we would all have our agencies under one letter, or that we all individually send it out?
Oh.
It would go under the agencies that supports it would automatically go under one letter.
Okay.
Right, yes. I guess how it would function in, like, once you all get approval from your organizations, you can email staff, and we would build that list that way, yes. But it's open to, any organization that you are affiliated with as well.
All right, do we have a deadline? That's a good point, Dr. Robinson. Do we have a deadline for this letter? Since, Emmy, you seem like you're going to be the lead for this letter. I'm telling you right now, so write it down. Florida PTA and Palm Beach County PTA have put it in writing that they will support this letter. So I'm not representing that.
Like I said, the two main lobby days with advocacy groups that are working on this are February 7th and 8th. So I would say the deadline should be February 4th. That's the Friday before those days.
Okay.
And we can send that out on that Monday where it's the lobby days, and it will be a lot of attention drawn to that.
February 4th by noon, because staff probably do have to work on Fridays.
Yes, so if you could get it by then, and then, however, your official position and who on behalf of your organization is supporting that, so that we have confirmation.
And we should send that to who?
To Susan Holtzclaw.
To Susan, okay.
All right, are you ready for
As part of the discussion, I take Sue's information.
Let's read the motion, because we don't know the motion yet.
Okay, sorry.
All right. Are we ready? The members of DDEC present the LGBTQ student support letter to their agencies for approval and use for legislation.
Motion is on the floor, and it has just been read. Are there any discussions? I see Dr. Robinson's hand, and I also acknowledge Kimberly.
So my request, I'm sorry, is it my turn?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm suggest that, one, you have the letter with all the organizations on it, but that also each organization uses their networks to advocate in Tallahassee too, whether that's maybe like PTA sends it out to everybody on the PTA email list and says, send this letter to your legislators or whatever, but that it's individual and collective.
Yeah, a call for action.
And I just want to, and just a point of privilege, just to work with the Madam Chair, so once we receive all that information, to work with the Chair, if you're comfortable, so that we can work to get this sent out to the respective legislation. Okay? So that we'll have to just turn this around real quickly.
I'm going to quickly comment. What Sue said is well taken. I don't think the letter mandates that organizations sign on, and I wanted to add that some organizations have bylaws that allow voting of the voting members through email if an issue needs to be addressed immediately, and I think I'm going to do that for some
As
of
we're
mine.
heading closer to time.
I know.
Anybody want to? Unless we have a motion within the next minute to extend time, I'm going to have to.
I make a motion to extend time by 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Any objections? Motion to extend time by 5 minutes is in order. Go ahead, finish your sentence.
I'm done with what I was saying.
Are we done with the motion?
I think so. We are. Did everybody
Need a
hear the
vote,
motion?
right?
Yeah.
Does anybody need clarification?
Any discussions? Did everyone online hear the motion? Because I know it's a little different. Okay. Yes, no one called the question, but yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Who was the aye that opposed?
No, she didn't say when it said, she didn't say oppose. She said, I vote.
Approve,
Yes.
okay. Okay, it was a delay over here. Got it. Motion carries.
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? One abstention.
We're starting to lose some people online.
Motion carries with one abstention.
Yes, I got it.
Make sure we were still in quorum. Is that about public comment? We have, we can do the start time consideration now. This is something we keep pushing back. In the last 2 meetings, we have asked about start time considerations. And I'm just going to allow the public comment while I look at the times again, because I don't see them on this.
We can bring it up.
On this agenda. You want to bring it up next time? Okay. Well, we will send out the possible start times, and then we'll bring it up at the next meeting. Did you have a public comment?
Ms. Mendez had a
Pete?
public comment.
Okay, we have Pete, Ms. Mendez, and Mr. Pagan with a public comment.
Wouldn't
And
this
please be mindful of the
member-
time, or we will have to adjourn. So unless someone make a motion to extend that time,
Motion to extend.
okay.
Second, and isn't it
By-
member content? Because, I mean, member comment, and then the public is the people who are not members? Or am I wrong?
Pete is a public,
Oh, okay, sorry. He's staff.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Still a public comment. He's not a member of the DDEC.
Right.
Did you have a comment? No. So
You
Pete,
didn't get how
Ms.
long we were
Pagan.
extending.
Oh, I didn't get how long we're extending the time.
400 seconds.
10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes, fine.
Okay, 10 minutes.
All right. Who's going first?
All approved? You got
All
voted?
approved?
No, we don't have to vote. Any objections? There's no objections. No. Consensus. All right, Pete, let's break it down to a minute if we can. Just be respectful of other people's time.
Sure. Just wanted to mention, and please jump in. We were able to meet with the superintendent and Ms. Whitfield last night at a conversation with our students. Our LGBTQ students took place at Compass. It was a great conversation. We hope to be able to have a follow-up to that, but a lot of issues came up as far as verbal as well as physical abuse that's happening in the schools, as well as other issues ranging from names and pronouns use to inconsistent use when substitutes are in the classroom. So we want to look at, there are some easy fixes that could be implemented today, and then some longer term solutions. And then also I want to mention again that the Palm Beach Pride is coming up. It's March 26th and 27th. Please plan to come out. It's always a great time. Compass puts that on, as well as all of their community partners. And finally, just as a point of information, if you remember last year, the trans athlete bill was killed during session and was brought back to life in another bill. These bills that we brought up in this letter have both passed their first committee hurdles. They just need one more before they come for a floor vote. So it's really important, not only because the lobbying days are February 7th and 8th, but the session ends March 11th. So please just take that into consideration when bringing this letter to your agencies.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick, and maybe this is not the right time, but it's about, is there a way, because this is technicality, how can we link all these links that we have available for the students, for the parents, and all that, that when they can go to one website, they just can click on one, and that will tell you go here, you go to the paper presentation, or you go to the DECC, the positive behavior, so that it will be, because sometimes when you call for information, you ask, has it been published in Facebook yet, the Facebook page of the school board? No, because that's the Department of Communication at such and such. Or because this is a news release department. It's different departments, and sometimes it looks like the left hand is not talking to the right hand, and I don't like to see that. I like to see everybody, this is coordinated, this is a big effort that we're trying to help, because also to our chamber, the Florida Hispanic American Chamber of Commerce, we publish And we put it there, but try to get it in a format or try to get a link. Oh, man, it's sweating.
No, I hear what you're saying. Have you gone to the parent and community page and looked at everything that's there?
Yeah.
You have?
Yes, and then what happened is that, well, that information is not being posted. It was as a news release, but it's not there yet because the department who deals with that have to.
Maybe we can talk more offline. You can explain to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're going to prove it, yeah, I want to understand more.
Yeah. So I just want to make it easier for the parents, you know.
Yep. No, Ms. Mendez, why don't you share?
Hi.
Okay,
Is it
Ms.
my time to present?
Ms. Mendez, how much time do you need for this?
Less than 2 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share with you, I don't know if you can see my PowerPoint now.
Yes.
Do you see three images, a
Yes.
mirror, a window, and a door?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is a concept that is brought to literature for students, and Bishop says that our students need to see themselves in books. I think students need to see themselves in also in their teachers. They need to see reflection of themselves as principals, teachers who look like them, and also in the schools. In our school districts, although we have Hispanic and Latinx students have been the majority since 2017. As I don't know if you can see the data there. Can you see the graphic?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We are treated as minoritized, even though we are the majority of the students. And so I wonder if you know how many schools have been named after a Latinx or Hispanic person in the district where the students are the majority. You know how many?
No. Can you?
0. So I am here to share with you that the Hispanic Education Coalition proposes that the high school currently identified as 000, which is under construction, be named after Dr. Joaquin Garcia, who has promoted equity for all students in many ways. For example, by supporting and challenging the school district, for example, by pushing for the design, development, and implementation of the NYU equity study, by creating fundraisings and creating scholarships for all students. So the Hispanic Education Coalition would like the support of this committee in proposing this to the board. We know there is a naming process, but I just wanted to share with you, and I just want to gain this committee sympathy for this proposal. That's it.
Can I get a motion? Motion to recommend.
Not on public comment.
Not on public comment. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I propose that it be added to the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I can get
the
that.
motion would be to include this in the agenda for the next meeting.
It would not be a motion. It can be a it's a recommendation, which is at the will of the board because we still have not gone through our next business. So it can be a recommendation during our next our new business. It could be brought up during the new business.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, during
Thank
the new
you.
business, someone can then bring a motion, but not during public comment.
Okay. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry.
Thank you.
No worries.
I had to go to another meeting. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Thank you.
Was that all the public comments? Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. The next board meeting is scheduled, the next board meeting that I would report out to is scheduled for February 23rd at 5 p.m. There is, I feel like there's another one, February 2nd, correct? February 2nd at special meeting at 2 p.m. on February 2nd. So please keep your eye out on the agenda. And also, I would like to also share that the DDEC, or I'm sorry, the ABC committee is currently active. That's the Advisory Boundary Committee. And I asked that the DDEC, pop in, listen to what's going on, because there's a lot of equity concerns with this particular study, 05C. This is the Boca Raton, the new school that is scheduled to open in August for in Boca Raton. There is a lot of concerns. You got to pop in and listen, maybe review those videos, but we certainly have to take a look at the ABC committee. I serve on the committee. I tell you, there is some equity issues. There's some concerns about, affluential communities that's going to us, that's stacked up in one particular schools, and this is from the committee. So I implore you this is the committee and this is what we're about, and the community is coming out with their concerns about equity. And so you guys may want to take a look at that and listen to what's going on there. I plan to send a report to this committee on what's been going on in the last few meetings, and we have a meeting tonight starting at 4:30, and it is virtual. So if you have a chance, you can certainly go take a look at that. And if you need to talk, you need to put your request in by 12 o'clock. So, new business. Are there any new business to come before the body of this committee? Are there any new business to come before the body?
What Ms. Mendez said, that's already...
That's a new business.
That's new business, okay.
Yes, but you want to bring forth that motion?
Yes, to recommend the naming of a school for a local leader that was part of this committee.
Okay, so Ms., that's the recommendation. A motion is on the floor, and the motion is on the floor to recommend that this committee brings Ms. Mendez's concerns to the next meeting.
Correct.
Or to be added to the agenda, because we can't just recommend that.
I know.
Yeah,
We'll just put it for school naming and then have the discussion.
Second.
As a discussion. It was second by
Emmy.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was second by Emmy. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Objection? Aye. There's no objections. Motion passed unanimously. Any abstains? No. Motion passed unanimously.
Do we still have quorum?
We still do have quorum. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, we still have quorum. Craig is on there. Sue is still on there. You have 4 people on board on here, and you still have 6 of us in the room. Just give me 1 second, and I think we are all done. I think we're. I can send my other comment through email. So just got 1 minute left. Just to recap, so I'm not missing anything. We can talk offline. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Motion to adjourn by Juan Pagano, 11:15 or 11:14.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for a productive meeting. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Wonderful day. Wonderful day.